Autoethnography. Autoethnography is a form of qualitative research that combines elements of autobiography and ethnography. This research method aims to describe and systematically analyze personal experience in order to understand cultural experience. The researcher places his or her experiences and interactions with others within the larger context of society to both critically self-reflect and challenge potentially oppressive dominant discourses within society. In an attempt to study and understand culture while resisting the notion that the researcher is separate from the study, autoethnography deliberately places the researcher as the focus of the study and embraces the researcher's knowledge and personal experience throughout the process. This approach gained momentum in the 1980s during the postmodern crisis of representation wave in anthropology writing and research. The traditional methods of scientific research were being challenged and expanded beyond facts, truths, and researchers and scientists finding truths and facts in research. Tradition also put the researcher over the subject in the study. Autoethnography instead recognizes and embraces the many ways that the research process and products are influenced by the researcher's personal experiences. Autoethnography is both a process and a product. It is typically written about a memory or a moment from the researcher's past that had a significant impact on his or her life. Researchers retrospectively select epiphanies that stem from or are made possible by being part of a culture or by possessing a particular cultural identity. In telling the story of the memory or experience, the author is describing his or her personal encounter with that phenomenon. This story makes up one part of the autoethnography. The second part is the scientific analysis of that experience. The researcher must analyze why this story is of significance, why it is relevant for exploration, and why it leads to a better understanding of the phenomenon in question. In order for it to be considered a quality research, both parts must be combined to introduce a new perspective of a phenomenon or build on the current knowledge known already about that phenomenon. Potential risk in autoethnography is the impact of the research on those relationships highlighted in the study. As the researcher does not live in isolation, the story of the researcher unavoidably includes those whom he or she is in relationship with: parents, siblings, friends, romantic partners. Due to the focus on the one individual, it is difficult, if not impossible, to disguise the others who are included in the study, even when the names are excluded. A researcher discussing family dynamics cannot avoid his or her mother being identifiable when discussing the role the mother played in the family. The researcher must be prepared to inform these individuals and navigate the impact that the research may have on these relationships. Trustworthiness involves components of reliability, validity, and generalizability. Reliability speaks to the author's credibility, as evidenced by the narrator believing that the described experiences actually happened and could be verified if factual evidence were available. Validity speaks to whether the reader feels the description of the experience seems believable or possible, and whether the story is coherent. Generalizability. Proponents of autoethnography argue that the researcher's example of critical self-reflection and self-analysis can inspire and encourage readers to also critically self-reflect and analyze their own relationships and experiences with various phenomena. Article analysis. This article focused on family bullies. Initially, they used a literature support to highlight bullying. Bullying, they described as a person being exposed repeatedly and over time to others' negative actions. Bullying is a deliberate subset of aggression that involves and is possible because of a power imbalance between aggressors and victims. This imbalance leaves victims less able to defend themselves physically, emotionally, and relationally. Effects of bullying. Health issues can arise and last for several decades after bullying has ended. It can include depression, self-harm, and suicide. Bullies may be prone to more serious violent behavior, school problems, conduct disorder, and substance use. Critical family communication research. Critical research tends to describe instances of social harm and abuses of power by identifying deeply structured inequities, conflicts, and contradictions, and works to improve the lives of the marginalized, oppressed, and disenfranchised. It offers suggestions for improving social life through personal and cultural awareness, as well as ways to change harmful micro-practices of everyday family life. These can include personal narratives that remain underutilized in family communication research. Personal narratives, especially narratives about family experience, make visible problems of family communication that have previously been ignored, forgotten, or hidden. Autoethnography uses personal experience to describe and examine intersections between the person and the culture, the micro and the macro, the private and the public. Autoethnographers convey personal narratives to reflexively illustrate the ways in which cultural systems and ideologies inform and influence personal experience. By engaging autoethnographic narratives, readers come into intimate and emotional contact with issues of family communication with the aim of documenting and living more aware and meaningful cultural lives. Also, showing some of the ways in which public cultural discourses inform private personal experiences. In this article, the problem, families are widely assumed to be sacred, with expectations for what and how families should be, and how families should interact with each other and treat one another. However, not all families are like this, nor should there be one set of expectations for how families function and interact with one another. Purpose of this article was to address bullying within the family context. And the questions it asked: what if some familial relationships consist of perpetual hardship, harm, and of particular interest to this essay, bullying behaviors? What should be said of family members who want to avoid toxic family systems? And what stories can dislodge the presumed sacredness of families, and in so doing offer more innovative and diverse possibilities for relationships and systems characterized by pain and suffering? In this article, there were 2 participants in the sample, the first author and a student in the second author's class who provided a personal narrative. The data was collected through written narratives from each participant, and the data was analyzed throughout the article, but there was no detail or explanation regarding how they analyzed the data. As the story was told, the author examined the story in a manner that seemed to analyze it, but it was not explained how this was done. Findings. So, avoiding the bully within the family requires time, emotional labor, and impacted the cultivation and maintenance of more positive relationships with other family members. Also, it can be difficult to avoid the bully within a family system. When you live together, it creates more opportunities for bullying and makes it impossible to escape. There are 3 relational practices that can relate to the victim's relationship with the bully: understanding, dialogue, and forgiveness. Bullying creates an unsafe environment within the family by the bully and by the other family members who don't intervene or attempt to stop it. Relationships between bullies and victims may improve over time, but they are not obligated to get along in a significant way, despite popular belief that family members are expected to get along. Norms about family life are reimagined through this study. One norm is that families consist of non-voluntary relationships characterized by obligation. This study argues that the definition of family harms those who need to distance or remove themselves from bullies within the family. Family estrangement can be redefined or reimagined as a balanced and appropriate response to an unhealthy situation. The importance of using bullying terminology to understand harm within the family context, not just peer bullying, which is the most common. These participants in this study named and understood their lived experiences as bullying within their families. So examining this article as an autoethnographic article, this put the researchers' personal experiences of bullying and were examined within the cultural context of the family. The author recalled a set of memories from his past that had significant impact on his life. He shared both the story and his analysis of his experience as is expected in this type of research. This article demonstrates how the researcher's personal story is intended to be subjected to critical self-reflection and challenge dominant discourses within this society. The author demonstrated this by telling his story, his reactions in both the past and the present, and the impact of the experience on current relationships. He also used his story to challenge the dominant social construct that families are safe, that family members should get along, and that obligation to the family trumps bullying or conflict. In looking at the trustworthiness of this article, the author of this study sounds confident that his experiences were true and could, to an extent, be verified by other family members who witnessed the bullying several times. For validity, these descriptions seemed coherent, they made sense, and they felt believable to me as the reader. In generalizability, this article did elicit some critical self-reflection and self-analysis of my own relationships and my own experiences with bullying in families, and how it might have been present between me and my family. Overall, I found this article to be a good representation of autoethnography. It seemed to illustrate that it is both a process and a product. It did a good job of blending the personal narrative and the analysis to generate new or different knowledge. However, I was disappointed that there was no description or explanation for how they analyzed the data. Based on the narrative within the article, you could tell that the author was analyzing his story and trying to make meaning of his past experiences, but it was never detailed how he was coding or organizing this analysis. And that's all. Thank you very much.